Hello and welcome to this episode of Diplomats. We're honoured today to be speaking with His Excellency the Australian Ambassador to Turkey, Ian Biggs. Ian, thank you very much indeed for joining us today.
Thank you for the opportunity. I haven't been here very long, but I'm enjoying it greatly.
Well, that's wonderful. Tell me something a little bit about Australia first, for those who'd like to know a little bit more. As an island nation, its position in the world, in that part of Southeast Asia, ostensibly, it's a Western cultural country. How do you manage to maintain the culture of Australia, which has developed itself, hasn't it, over the last century?
We are a multicultural country. We have immigrants from all around the world. They have formed the Australian nation, and we don't pretend to be particularly East Asian or Western. We are indeed, as I say, multicultural, and proud of that.
Well, from a cultural and political point of view, given there's often been suggestions that Australia would or should become a republic, how does Australia see its connection with the Commonwealth?
We're proud to be members of the Commonwealth, which includes many republics, but we're also very attached to our long-standing connection with the British Crown, and we haven't felt the need to be ashamed of our past, or indeed to disown where we came from. We have, as I've said, many different cultural streams in Australia's history, and they contribute to our membership in many different organisations, everything from the Pacific Islands Forum to the Group of 20 and all of the United Nations organisations and regional bodies, right the way through to the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe. We have many affiliations, and they don't cancel each other out. They help to tie us into an engagement globally.
Well, Australia's a very aggressive country in terms of its commerce. It likes to get out there into other countries and do a great deal of business. The business with Southeast Asia has grown tremendously just over the last decade. How much effort is put into working with Southeast Asian neighbours?
Southeast Asia is the largest and most rapidly growing market for Australian exports, and therefore it has been a focus for a lot of effort, but in fact we try globally, and there's a great deal of work being done through our Consulate General in Istanbul to increase trade with Turkey as well. It's not something that we regard as a limiting factor, and Australia is one of the most export dependent economies in the developed world, and therefore we try everywhere.
Well, Australia does depend on exports, of course, as you mentioned. Raw materials are a big part of that. But what else does Australia intend to do in the future to keep its economic security?
Raw materials have been a bedrock for Australia's commerce over the last 100 years of our nationhood, but on the other hand, trade in services, financial services, and the expertise that Australians are able to take around the world has been just as important and increasingly more important. We have Australian firms which developed their own expertise in raw materials, in mining, for example, and agriculture, that are now active in assisting other countries to develop their own sectors. So it's not just shipping stuff out of the country, it's also doing things better and helping other countries to develop their own industry.
Ian, given the relationship between the two countries, what's being done at the moment to enhance the bilateral relationship?
On the commercial level, the government, indeed the governments, take a number of steps. We have a Joint Economic Commission which meets roughly once a year. We have bilateral trade delegations. For example, there was a big one organised recently by the Europe-Australia Business Council. We have ministerial delegations which always include obviously a trade component, and so there's an official effort to raise awareness of the opportunities in both directions. There's also a great deal being done by Austrade, by the Australian Trade Commission, to try and encourage individual Australian firms to take advantage of the real opportunities that do exist in Turkey and with Turkey. And in the other direction, again, we see an increasing number of Turkish business people who perhaps they go for tourism in the first place, but then discover that in fact they have a vibrant economy at the other end with a great deal to offer them. So there is essentially an awareness raising exercise. There are so many things that can be done, so many complementarities in our economies, so many fields of expertise in which Australia is already able to offer a great deal, and I'm sure in reverse that it's mostly a matter of bringing people together and hoping that they will draw the correct conclusions.
Well, even though I know you can't speak for Turkey, and we'll ask this question a little bit later, but in coming into Turkey, are there any barriers to entry? Are there any negative points that Australians perhaps might be fearful about that your mission, along with your Turkish counterparts, can help to allay?
I must say that in the month that I've been in Turkey, there have been no obstacles. I find that there is a great deal of cooperation, readiness to assist with everything from our annual commemorations of Anzac Day right through to the visit of our foreign minister just a couple of weeks ago. So we have a very cooperative relationship which ensures that most things work well. Visas are simple in both directions. The transport links are good and getting better. There's an air services agreement that was concluded just last year, and no, I can't point to any obvious structural barriers that would explain why there hasn't been even more cooperation than there is already.
We touched on education a little earlier. What initiatives are there for educational migration between the two countries, one way or another?
There are already about 3,000 Turkish students studying in Australia, a smaller number of Australian students studying in Turkey, but it's not a bad level. It's one we would like to see increased. There are scholarships provided by both governments, not in vast numbers, but they provide an incentive, a seed money, you might say, to encourage people to take an interest in studying in institutions in both directions. Many Australian and Turkish universities already have cooperation agreements, including in specific fields of research, but in most cases postgraduate level. We try to encourage research which doesn't have to be commercially focused. It can be about pure research, and we hope that the awareness of the skills base in both countries will encourage people to do more together at an academic level. The initiatives for getting students to Australia have worked so well globally that at the moment something like a quarter of all the students in our universities are from overseas, with, as I say, several thousand from Turkey being part of that group.
Yes. Just looking at the region generally, and we can't really call the Middle East a region in which Turkey resides, because Turkey clearly bridges the divide, if you will, between Europe and Asia. And it's in a very unique position. Turkey's been an emerging economy for some time and remains so. But is there anything about the Tunisia and Egypt conflicts that have given rise to any concerns that Australia might have for the region generally?
Clearly what has happened in Tunisia, Egypt and indeed elsewhere will give pause to tourists coming to the Middle East, or to business people attempting to work there or to travel there. So it will, I'm sure, lead to a temporary slowdown, but there's also great cause for hope in an upsurge of democratic activity around the region. I don't want to sound at all begrudging about these extraordinary upswellings of popular opinion in the Middle East. The effort on the part of Australia and Turkey has been to respond in a constructive and helpful way, to take care of our own citizens first with consular issues and evacuations in some cases, but also to offer whatever we can to help these countries to rebuild their own institutions and to thrive as democracies in a region which, given its population and resource base, should be doing very well. So no, I don't want to sound negative about what has been an extremely exciting but also dangerous time in the Middle East in the last couple of months. It's something that Australia and Turkey have been constructive and cooperative in responding.
Let's take a look at economics again for 1 second. And even though before you mentioned that you didn't feel comfortable labelling any particular country to be a member of any part or any other bipartisan arrangement in any part of the world, but clearly Turkey is looking to be a member of the European Union. I'm not sure how long it might still look to do that, given the state of Europe. But does Australia have a view about whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing from an Australian vantage point if Turkey is or isn't part of the European Union?
Clearly the membership of the European Union is an issue for European countries, but I'm not saying anything novel or surprising if I say that Australia would be very happy if Turkey were to become a member of the European Union. We have excellent relations with the EU as a group as well as with its member states, and that would be another form of cooperation, another opportunity for Australia to work with Turkey. So yes, as various Australian ministers have said over many years, we would be happy if Turkey were to become a member of the EU in due course. But as you say, it's not something for us to decide on.
You mentioned earlier about improving or liking to see an improvement in the understanding, perhaps culturally, of the two countries. What initiatives do you think could be taken by Australia to increase an awareness of Australia by Turkish people?
One initiative that was announced by the two foreign ministers just 2 weeks ago was to have a year of Turkey and Australia and of Australia and Turkey. And we would do that in 2015 to coincide with the centenary of Anzac as the first great event that brought our two countries together. So no, there are cultural initiatives. There are also things that happen all the time by way of sport. There are Australian sports people in the Turkish football federations. There are plenty of sports fans travelling in either direction for major events. There are many things that happen in this country that are of great interest to Australian tourists, obviously, but we want to bring people together in a more permanent way through a tourism promotion program in both directions, and we've, as I said, been facilitating that through visa simplification and improved transport links.
Have you seen much improvement in the numbers of tourists visiting Australia and Australians visiting in Turkey in the last couple of years?
The numbers are already good. They haven't risen as sharply as we might have hoped. Our expectation is that this 2015 target for the Gallipoli centenary, but also for a year of Turkey and Australia and Turkey, will be something to work towards, and so we will be taking a number of initiatives in the cultural field, trying to encourage exchanges, sporting, musical, artistic, and hoping that people will build on that. But you can't force people to travel in either direction. The fundamental link that will hold us together is the Turkish Australian community, with more than 100,000 people of dual background who will have plenty of good reasons to encourage that interaction.
Yes. Do you think that Turkey's embracing of its eastern neighbours and the easing of restrictions in terms of visas and so on, and even business opportunities that exist between its eastern neighbours, is that of a benefit to Australia to open up new areas for trade and exchange of information and culture?
It's not primarily for Australia's benefit, obviously. It's something that Australia recognises, welcomes, and is very happy to see. Good relations in any given neighbourhood are excellent for trade and people-to-people contacts, and so it's good. But I wouldn't say that it's going to be particularly groundbreaking for Australian economic involvement in the Middle East. It's something that we're very happy to see as a friend of Turkey's, and as a country that has benefited greatly from a more open world.
And what would you like to see the future of the whole region, and how would your sight or your vision for the whole region be of interest and benefit to Australia?
Meaning the Middle East?
Meaning the Middle East.
Meaning the Middle East. Well, look, we are hopeful that out of the ferment of the last few months we will see an efflorescence of democracy, an increase in the number of economies which are open to influence and friendship and cooperation and trade with the rest of the world. So there should be gain for everyone from a gradual opening up of the region, and Turkey's role in providing support, assistance, education, and indeed friendship is going to be crucial to knitting together that region, and that's something that Australia will be very happy to see and to assist with where we can.
So you see a bright and happy future between Australia and Turkey in terms of tourism, in terms of other trade, and in terms of business being exchanged between the two countries.
I'm happy to say that in the month that I've been in Turkey, everything has been positive, and we'll be working very hard to keep it that way. We have two countries with very different geographical background, locations, but a great deal in common, and a real bedrock of friendship on which to build.
Ian, thank you very much indeed for your time today. We appreciate it.
It's a privilege.
Well, that's Diplomats for this week. Thanks for joining me. I'm Stephen Marnie. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye for now.